Well, for more on the PM's trip to China, we're joined by Dr. Ross Babage, CEO of the Strategic Forum. Ross, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm keen to get your perspective on the Prime Minister's visit to China. How did you see it?
Well, I think 6 days is a really interesting number. I think it's a question of balance. I think there really is a sense in having periodic discussions with the Chinese at the top level. But this Prime Minister has visited Xi Jinping and had meetings with him 4 times. It's quite a while since he's been in the United States, and I think it's out of balance. I think it's a bit out of whack, to be really frank, and I think it needs some corrections. I'm really concerned also that what he's been doing effectively is he's portraying China to the Australian public and to the world as being a benign, friendly, panda-loving, if you like, country. There's nothing really untoward to be seen there. Well, that's simply not true. What we're looking at in reality, when you look at the real hard facts, this is a country that's conducting pretty well daily major cyber operations against us, conducting major espionage operations against us, conducting major influence and corruption operations against us. And of course, on the military side, is really building up a vast military capacity, the largest military capacity in the Western Pacific by a long shot. And of course, Xi Jinping has ordered his own military to be ready to invade Taiwan in 2 years' time. So here, on the one hand, you've got the Prime Minister basically portraying China as a friendly, easy to get on with, nothing to watch here or worry about. But in fact, we need a season of honesty. We need a season of honesty. We need to be told, the public needs to be told the realities of what the CCP is like, what the Chinese Communist Party is really like, and what they're really doing, because we may be in big trouble very soon.
Season of honesty. I think that's so well put. You mentioned Taiwan. I want to talk about that. Liberal frontbencher Jonathan Dunn says the coalition's stance on Taiwan remains unchanged. Here he was on Sky News this morning.
You think Australia should make a commitment to the security of Taiwan?
Well, the position of the coalition's been made pretty clear by Susan, James Patterson, Andrew Hastie, and of course more latterly Angus Taylor, and that is we do want to support the preservation of the status quo, committing to a conflict that isn't on foot. Pre-committing to a hypothetical conflict is not something we're going to enter into.
Ross, the US wants to know our position. Considering they're providing us with nuclear submarines, that's a fair request, isn't it?
Look, I think there's a real misunderstanding about Elbridge Colby, who happens to be a friend of mine, what he's asking from Australia. He's not asking for a firm commitment to be there no matter what. What he's asking for is he's wanting an in principle judgment about Australia's overall position in a range of contingencies. And let me explain why. It's not just the review of AUKUS that he's got the responsibility of doing within the Pentagon. He's the senior policy man in the US Department of Defense. He's got to write and take responsibility for the review of AUKUS. But more importantly for him, he's also been commissioned to write the new National Defense Strategy. Now, this is the document that sets the whole priorities for the US defense and national security community. And if he's going to make sensible judgments, he needs to know, is the United States going to receive and have access to continued Australian intelligence in a crisis in the Indo-Pacific? Is the United States going to have access to Australian bases in a range of situations? Is the United States going to actually get strong logistic support and everything from food to, you name it, fuel and whatever, and so on? They need to know that, as well as, of course, they need to know in broad terms and in principle judgment about whether the United States can expect Australia to support it with military capability in certain circumstances. No firm commitment really required. They wouldn't expect that. They don't expect it. And so what's really happened here is the media, or some people in the media, and particularly overseas media, has tended to distort this as though it was some sort of formal, clear, decisive decision taken now that no matter what sort of contingency takes place up and around Taiwan or maybe the Philippines or somewhere other else in the next few years, we have to commit now. the Americans are asking that. The Americans themselves haven't committed themselves to that, and they fully understand that. It's just that I think there are people in our own country that haven't fully understood what's actually going on in terms of just in principle judgment. And basically what they're wanting, and I think we ought to offer, is in principle contingency planning. We ought to be prepared to work on a range of contingencies with the Americans. We've done this for a long time, actually.
Absolutely.
Well, what's the problem with that? I don't see any real issue. Then the government of the day will always have the decision, the ultimate decision about this, whether this country goes into combat operations.
Yeah, absolutely. So many unanswered questions. Dr. Ross Babage, always great to get your insights. Thanks very much for joining us on the show this evening. Really appreciate it.